What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 183 of the Nerd Cave podcast. Just one episode closer to hitting that 200 mark. I am one of your hosts, Derek Diamond, and as you can tell if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, I'm by myself this week. And that's because we participated in a really cool thing, which I'll get to more details about a little later on in the show, called Extra Life, where we basically played video games for 24 hours straight to raise money for sick children, and all proceeds went to our local children's hospital, Sacred Heart, which you can actually still donate up until December 31st, I believe. But Zach and Robbie, they went the full 24 hours. I unfortunately was not able to because Saturday was also my girlfriend's birthday, so I couldn't really spend the entire day playing video games, but I did get to spend several hours doing it. And like I said, I'll get into more details later on. But and if my voice sounds a little different or I'm a little short of breath, I apologize. I'm fighting a sinus infection. I have been fighting it for the last couple of weeks. And right before I started doing this podcast, I started to get a little short of breath and coughing quite a bit. So I do apologize for that. But Zach and Robbie are resting today. They stayed up, like I said, the full 24 hours, so they are resting today. I'm recording this Sunday evening, and I just told them, look, guys, I'll handle the podcast. So we do have a few news stories to get into. Not too many, but some pretty good ones. We'll start off in the comic book movie world, and as a shout-out to Zach, I will start with the DC Universe, and that would be the new Wonder Woman trailer that came out. And I watched it, the day it came out, obviously, and I really liked it. I know it's been getting a little bit of flack for being similar to the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, being that this movie takes place in the World War I era, but I don't think it's really that big a deal. I honestly think this is the best looking DC movie that Warner Brothers has been putting out since they kind of rebooted their shared universe with Man of Steel. I actually think this is going to be the best of the DC movies. I know a lot of people are excited because Wonder Woman is the most iconic female superhero that there is. And given that Gal Gadot did such a good job playing her in the limited time that she was in Batman v Superman, I think giving her her own movie and having, some good backstory to it. I'm not sure who the villains are going to be because, to be honest, I'm not too familiar with Wonder Woman's Rogues Gallery. But I like that Chris Pine's in it. He's playing, I think his name is Steve Trevor, who is kind of a love interest to Wonder Woman. I really like him as an actor. I think him and Gal Gadot are going to have really good chemistry. And this movie can't come out soon enough for me. I know I'm a Marvel fanboy, and me and Zach will bicker about it off and on the podcast sometimes, but I want the DC movies to be good. I want all these movies to be good. It's better for the fan base if all the movies are good, Marvel and DC. And yeah, Marvel is kind of its own juggernaut right now, and DC is still trying to find itself. But I've said this before, DC does not need to fast-track everything to try and play catch-up with Marvel. They need to find their own way. They need to develop the stories the way, honestly, that Marvel has done them. And sure, you'll be copying the Marvel formula, but if it works, why not do it? Because that's why the Avengers was so good when it first came out, because we had Iron Man, we had the Incredible Hulk movie, we had Captain America, we had Thor. We invested time in these characters. What is the big deal if we're introduced to the Flash in Justice League? Where has been the time that we've come to, grow a relationship with Barry Allen, with Iris West? Or same thing with Cyborg. How are we supposed to sympathize with this kid who has become basically a robot? I just don't see it. Like I said, I'm not dissing the movie. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be bad because I'm excited for Justice League. I think the trailer looked great. But I just don't agree with the method that DC has gone to try and fast track all of these movies. But I'll get off on my tangent. I think Wonder Woman, I think the trailer looked great. I'm excited for the movie. I'll definitely be seeing it. I think this is going to be the first DC Universe movie that is mostly popular. It'll get its fair share of critics, but I think this is going to be the one that most everyone will agree, okay, that was a good movie. And I really hope so, because, we haven't had a superhero movie that's been led by a female. And I think Gal Gadot has proved she can carry that role, and I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited for it. Moving on into the Marvel side of things, we've been talking about Deadpool 2 off and on. Tim Miller left due to what was supposedly creative differences, and I gave a pretty good explanation about that last week, that it's rumored that he left because Tim Miller wanted the budget to be bigger, and he wanted to add more things to it, and Ryan Reynolds wanted to keep it low budget and give it kind of that indie, gritty feel that made Deadpool so different. And if that's the case, I actually sided with Ryan Reynolds on that one. But it does suck because Tim Miller was one of the driving forces to making that movie happen. But the latest news, composer Junkie XL drops out because Tim Miller is not directing. And this is from IGN. Excuse me. Along with director Tim Miller, Deadpool 2 has also just lost its composer. Junkie XL, who composed the first Deadpool film, has announced on Facebook that he's no longer doing the score for the sequel. The decision was solely down due to Miller's recent departure from the project, which has forced Junkie XL to do some soul-searching. According to the composer, Miller was the driving force behind Deadpool and getting Junkie XL involved with the first film. He quoted, "Deadpool without Tim at the helm just does not sit right with me, and that is why I've decided not to be involved with the second chapter." Junkie XL he worked with Hans Zimmer on the Batman vs. Superman soundtrack, and also did Mad Max Fury Road, which if you haven't seen that movie yet, it's so good. So good. You got to see Fury Road. This to me is a big deal. You lose your director, which is big enough in itself, being one of the driving forces as to why the movie happened. But you can eventually find someone to replace him. And I think, it's the same thing with the composer, but losing both of them, because Deadpool has a unique sound to it. Now that you've lost both your composer and your director, I think that's enough to kind of raise an eyebrow to this whole thing. I mean, Deadpool 1 had a lot riding on it, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get the movie to happen, and it looks like they have more odds to overcome with the sequel. It's a shame if it does affect it, because I really like Deadpool. I think it was the shot in the arm that the superhero movie genre needed, because we've gotten what we call the Marvel formula, and I'll get to that later when I review Doctor Strange. But it was just so unique and so accurate to the character, and it was just such a fun time. We haven't really had that R-rated superhero movie that was kind of a dark comedy too. So I don't know. I think the movie will still be decent. I'm very curious to see what happens. I'm very curious to follow the production, because I think that starts early next year. I'm very curious to see what happens throughout the whole process, because losing your director is a big thing, and I don't know. I hope they can overcome it, because I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he was the perfect choice for Deadpool. You can tell he loves the character, and he really cares about it in the interviews that he does and his portrayal of Wade Wilson on screen. So I really hope that all of this works out. Let's see, kind of moving into the, other type of superhero genre. We talked about the Power Ranger toys last week and how they didn't look that great. Well, this came out a couple of days ago. The Megazord has been revealed, which was kind of a shocker to me because I hadn't really thought about it. They haven't revealed the actual Zords on screen. It's all been from toys. I mean, we saw the Tyrannosaurus Zord, And then we saw, various other things, but this was according to comicbookmovie.com. Well, here's something cool to take you into the weekend. The official Power Rangers Twitter account has released a first look image at the Megazord toy, fully assembled from the upcoming reboot. I can't pronounce the director's name. And while it's likely to look a little different once the full effects are rendered on screen, the photo does offer a pretty good idea at what to expect when the real thing is revealed. Judging by the photo, the new Megazord is quite a departure from the classic version seen in the original 1993 Mighty Morphin series, but does bear a few similarities to the Ninja Megazord utilized in the 1995 movie. However, this one adds its own spin on how the 5 Dinozords join together, with the Tyrannosaurus Zord making up most of the body, Saber-toothed Tiger forming the core, Triceratops and Mastodon combining to form the legs, and the Pterodactyl transforming into the head. It looks very interesting. I mean, you can go on various websites and find it, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Power Rangers movie Zord, with the wings on the back, because the pterodactyl wings kind of fold out on the back. It looks to me like the arms were made from the Mastodon, because they're black like the Mastodon Dinozord. But I don't know. It does look very, very different, but I think it's fitting with the new look that they're going with. I think with the way the helmet and the face looks and everything, it actually kind of matches the look of the Power Rangers in this new incarnation. So personally, I don't have a huge issue with how the Megazord looks. Is it the same as the original? No. Do I like it as much as the original? Not really. But it's a new generation. It's a new incarnation of something that I grew up with. And that's kind of something that I think a lot of people my age have a hard time with. And I'll use the Ninja Turtles as an example. Now, I will say I haven't seen the newest Ninja Turtles, Out of the Shadows, yet. But I did see the original reboot, which Michael Bay produced. But was it great by any stretch? No. But I didn't walk out of the theater saying, "Oh my God, I hate this movie. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Michael Bay's ruined the Ninja Turtles forever." It's a new generation. It's not the Ninja Turtles I grew up with. This is not the Power Rangers that I grew up with. Now, that being said, I do think the Power Rangers trailer they released a few weeks ago looks amazing. I think it's going to be the right amount of seriousness, and I think it's going to have its comedic purposes as well. I think the effects are going to look good. I'm excited that they're taking a franchise that I love, that I thought would never go back to the way it was, because they keep coming out with a new incarnation of the Power Rangers for TV every year. I will say something that disappoints me, and I assume this is true, but Walter Jones, who was the original Black Ranger, did an interview saying that the original cast were not asked to do a cameo for this movie. And if so, that's a real shame, because that would have been really cool to maybe see them at the end as like karate instructors, or they're all in kind of one central area, and the new team meets the old team. I thought that would have been really cool. Maybe Walter Jones is just yanking our chain and we'll see the original team. Does it make or break the movie? No. But I actually think it would be kind of a geek out moment. And I will predict this for the new Power Rangers movie. I think it will end with us meeting Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger. And then the sequel will delve into Rita taking Tommy hostage and corrupting him and turning him into the Green Ranger, and he'll be the main villain of the sequel. And then that will move into a third one where, say, at the end of the second, Tommy becomes good. And then in the third movie is when we get Lord Zed. He shows up, he overthrows Rita, or you can just have them team up and have them try to take down the Rangers, and then maybe the Dinozords get destroyed and they get the second incarnation. And this may not be that popular, but they could have Tommy go ahead and turn into the White Ranger. I personally was more of a White Ranger fan than a Green Ranger fan. Not saying that I dislike the Green Ranger, but I thought the white tiger was awesome. I love the talking sword. People love the dragon flute more, but I guess I was just in the minority. I was more of a fan of the White Ranger. But either way, I'm really excited for the Power Rangers movie. I will definitely be seeing it opening weekend when it comes out. I think the Megazord, in closing thoughts, I think the new Megazord looks okay. It fits well with the look that I think they're going with for this incarnation of the Power Rangers. So I'm excited for it, and I think, I think people need to kind of take a step back and have some perspective when looking at things like the Ninja Turtles or the Power Rangers or something that they grew up with and complaining that it's not what they grew up with or it's not exactly the same. But either way, another thing that a lot of people grew up watching has gotten a new series. It's been around for a while, but it's finally coming to the United States. Funimation gets Dragon Ball Super and is working on an English dub. Funimation and Toei Animation announced the Dragon Ball Super English dub is in production. Funimation will also start simulcasting the newest episode of Dragon Ball Super this weekend. Though Funimation didn't say when we can expect the dub, Funimation is adding the English subtitled episodes of Dragon Ball Super to its library at 10 a.m. Pacific time today. This is from IGN. Funimation will also handle home video distribution of Dragon Ball Super for the United States and Canada. Dragon Ball Super made its debut in the West on several anime streaming websites earlier this month and first aired in Japan in July of 2015. I will say I don't know that much about Dragon Ball Super. The only incarnations I've watched a little bit of Dragon Ball. I think I've made it through like the first arc, if you will. Watched all of Dragon Ball Z. Absolutely loved it. It was a really fun anime. It's still really the only anime to this day I've ever watched. GT, I was told to stay away, so I've only watched highlights. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is badass, by the way. But this incarnation here, I'm really looking forward to, because I was talking with Zach about this during Extra Life, and he said that it was really, really good. So I don't know when this is going to happen, but I will definitely be watching it, because I think the Dragon Ball series, at least from the group of people that I know, and this is probably not the majority opinion, but to me, Dragon Ball is a little bit underrated when it comes to the circle that I'm in, because a lot of people will simply write off anime or it's something that they're just not really that into. But I enjoyed Dragon Ball Z. I think the stories were really good. A lot of great characters. Love Vegeta. Love Piccolo. I've kind of have a bias towards the villains, because I think seeing their redemption story is more interesting than, happy-go-lucky Goku who just wants to fight everybody because he wants to be the best. But I don't, like I said, I have no idea what Dragon Ball Super is even about. I'm excited to read about it, and once the dub comes out, I will definitely be watching it. Let's see. Next up, we have a little bit of gaming news. As most of you know who follow this podcast frequently, I'm kind of the third wheel, if you will, when it comes to games. I don't play a lot of modern games. Like, there are games that I'd love to play, like the Batman Arkham series, the newest Grand Theft Auto game, Mafia, but I just don't have the time between work and doing all the various outside projects that I do. I just don't really have the time to sit down and play video games. But I've always been a huge Nintendo fan at heart, so I've been really excited about. We've talked about this. We haven't talked about it on this show for a while, but Nintendo is releasing this week, which if you're watching the free version of this podcast or listening to the free podcast, it comes out today, the Mini NES, which is basically a pocket-sized version of the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and comes with 30 games that you can play. And it's only available for $60, so you're basically paying $2 per game, and that doesn't even include the console. Early reviews say it's great. A lot of people are complaining about the very short controller, which I can kind of see, but I think that just means that you're going to have to get a really long HDMI cord or hope they come out with some type of an adapter, which Nintendo adding accessories. Whoever would have thought of that? Anyway, this is kind of a cool thing they're doing as a tie-in to the Mini NES being released, and after this, I'll go over the list of games that are coming out with the console. This is from IGN. To celebrate the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System NES Classic Edition, Nintendo is bringing back the Nintendo Game Counselor service, the Power Line. For 3 days only, November 11th through 13th, the Power Line at one time and pre-internet, the only place to get help from some of Nintendo's classic games, will be back up with tips and tricks. Available from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Time each day. The advice line will be fully automated, but callers to, the number is 425-885-7529, will hear recorded tips for several games, plus behind-the-scenes stories from original Nintendo gameplay counselors. Nintendo social media /Nesterday takeover will go completely retro to a time when social media involved trading passwords and game tips on the school bus. This is great. I absolutely love it. I'm going to call it just for the heck of it. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to need it, but I think just doing stuff like this and the whole retro revamping of all their social media, Nintendo is finally embracing what makes them successful and what people know them for, and that is their nostalgia, because their retro library is legendary. Nintendo at one time was the only game in town, and there are a lot of people my age or even a little bit younger who can remember growing up playing the Nintendo. And I think this is a great first step to trying to win some of their audience back that they've lost with the Wii U and their poor planning of things. You know, for $60, you get 30 games and you get just a tiny console that you can take pretty much anywhere. Now, there are some drawbacks to it. The controller thing is kind of dumb. I don't know why you don't make a longer cord. And also, you can't download any games. It doesn't come with a hard drive that you can, plug your system into the computer and download more games. So you're kind of stuck with the 30 games, but there are quite a few of them. It says here the Nintendo Entertainment System includes 30 classic NES games such as Super Mario Bros., Metroid, Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda, Kirby's Adventure, and Pac-Man. Launches on November the 11th. Then, let's see, IGN gave it a 7.5, stating, the selection of 30 beautifully emulated, mostly classic games make a strong case to own a NES Classic as a way to easily revisit old favorites and introduce them to new generations. Nintendo made sure to pick the visual filters that made the most sense for its first dedicated classic video game machine. I just can't understand why someone thought limiting us to a 2.5-foot controller cables was a good idea, because it really limits where and how you can enjoy these games. That does suck. It's not going to make me not buy it. I'm definitely going to get it the day it comes out, but that is unfortunate. Nintendo, they just can't be perfect for some reason. Like, they can't make the majority happy. It just seems like they can't do it. But just to run down the list real quick, these are the 30 games that will be available on the Mini NES. Balloon Fight, Bubble Bobble, Castlevania 1 and 2, Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Double Dragon 2, Dr. Mario, Excitebike, Final Fantasy, Galaga, Ghosts and Goblins, Gradius, Ice Climber, Kid Icarus, Kirby's Adventure, Mario Bros., the arcade version, Mega Man 2, Metroid, Ninja Gaiden, Pac-Man, Punch-Out featuring Mr. Dream, Star Tropics, Super C, Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3, Tecmo Bowl, and The Legend of Zelda, and Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. So, quite a few games to choose from. So, I'm getting it for sure. I mean, for $60, you can't beat it. You're basically buying a retro console for the price you would pay for a brand new game. But that does it for the news portion. Now we'll get to my favorite part of the show, and that would be the awesome Facebook group. Facebook questions, if you will. We have an awesome Facebook group, facebook.com/group/NerdCaveNetwork. You can go there. I post a thread every week saying, we're looking for topics or questions. So if you want to ask them, then just leave them here. So we've got quite a few here. Let's see. Oh, we're actually doing this live. Adam Gumbert, I'm too late, right? Let me answer him real quick. Let's see. If you post now, I can answer it. I'm actually recording now. Haha. So we'll give him a few minutes to respond. Let's see. Derek Daniel, who I actually finally got to meet in person at Extra Life, which was very nice because we haven't really been in the same place before. Anytime he's been on the podcast, I haven't been able to. So I like to call him Earth 2 Derek, or maybe I'm the Earth 2 Derek and he's really the prime one. So I don't know. Derek Daniel asks, how was your experience with Extra Life? Short answer, Extra Life was great. I know I can speak on behalf of Zach and Robbie that I felt absolutely honored and privileged to be able to take part in that. I thought it was a really great cause, and getting to do something that we love to do and something that, to toot our own horn, I think we're good at. Really, it was just such a cool thing to do, and using, our talents and our skills to help raise money for sick children, I think was really cool. And Sacred Heart Hospital here in Pensacola is a great children's hospital. To kind of tell a little personal story, I work with the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, our local minor league baseball team affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. Once a month during the season, Sacred Heart will do this presentation or program called Home Run for Life. And they will feature a kid who is beaten, whether it be cancer or some type of illness that they thought was terminal. And we'll tell his story over the PA, show a little slideshow. The kid will come out with his family, and he'll get to run the bases like he hit a home run, and he'll get to high-five, the players from both the Wahoos and the visiting team, the coaches, managers, and everything. So Sacred Heart is a fantastic hospital. They're one of, if not the best hospital in town. So getting to do that, I hate that I couldn't do more, but the few hours that I did get to do it was a lot of fun. Me and Zach played WWE 2K17 for a while. We played the Jackbox games with Mr. Gumbert, and, we had Jeremy Branch from Be Terrible Productions. We had Chris Kiku from Nerd Life. And then we had our good friend Derek Daniel come by, and we had quite a wide list of people who came by and helped out. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate Jeremy, Chris, Ashlyn, Robbie's sister for helping out, Derek Daniel, everybody who took time to do that. It was really cool and one of my favorite things that we've done. So I hope we get to do the Extra Life next year. I definitely think we will. It's just such a great cause. Getting to help others, that's something that I'm pretty big on. Let's see. Derek Daniel also asks, non-spoiler review of Doctor Strange. Non-spoiler, Doctor Strange, absolutely fantastic. I went opening night. Totally loved it. The visuals were unbelievable. They were one of, if not the best visuals I've seen, one of the best visual movies that I've seen. I would put it right up there with Inception. I would put it up there with the original Matrix, even though the Matrix was made in the late 90s, but it was so groundbreaking as far as visual content in a movie goes. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch absolutely killed it as Doctor Strange. I would put his casting up there with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. A lot of people will say, well, Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. Well, to me, Benedict Cumberbatch is Stephen Strange. It was a little slow in the beginning, but I think once Strange started his teachings from the Ancient One, it really picked up the mind trip that she sent him on was, to no pun intended, out of this world. It was just, looks like Adam might be typing. Oh, there we go. Good job, Adam. But anyway, Doctor Strange was great. I actually thought Tilda Swinton did a good job as the Ancient One, even though her casting was met with a lot of criticism because the Ancient One is not a white female. And yeah, sure, they didn't stay accurate to the book, but I still think that Tilda Swinton did a pretty good job for what role she had. But this was Cumberbatch's movie. He owned this role, and I remember reading that he was Marvel's only choice that they wanted for this role. And if you look at Doctor Strange in the comic books or in most artist rendering of Doctor Strange, he does look like Benedict Cumberbatch in a way. And I was happy to see him. I haven't really seen him in any type of major motion picture. I haven't seen the Imitation Game yet. I think the last major movie I saw him in was Star Trek Into Darkness, which that was a few years ago. But the Doctor Strange kind of followed what I call the Marvel formula. And I was sitting there, I was watching it, and there's quite a few funny parts in this movie. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this has a lot more humor than I thought. But then I really started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, all the Marvel movies have some type of humor. They're more family-friendly. So that's really kind of what the Marvel formula is. You have the origin story. You have the little bits of humor sprinkled into it. And then you have, kind of an average villain. The hero wins, and then it sets up the sequel. Nothing wrong with that. It has been working for Marvel since Iron Man 1 came out. That being said, that's been a major weakness of the Marvel movies, is none of them really have that strong of a villain. And I don't know what it is, because there are so many great villains in the Marvel universe, but they just can't seem to nail most of them down. Is really the best villains have been in the Netflix shows. Like Vincent D'Onofrio is great as the Kingpin. David Tennant killed it, no pun intended, as Kilgrave. And I haven't really watched Luke Cage yet, but I've heard good things about the villains from that show as well. So I don't know what the difference is between Marvel being able to nail it with the villains on the Netflix shows, but kind of missing with the movies. And I think really the only exception to the movies has been Loki. But I think we're only really going to see him one, maybe two more times. I'm hoping Thanos changes that. I'm really excited about seeing Thanos once he gets the Infinity Gauntlet. I think Josh Brolin's going to own it. And Thanos is hopefully going to be the badass that he needs to be. I guess quick review or quick overview of it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give Doctor Strange an 8.5 or a 9. I would put it in my top 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I'd probably put it in the 3 to 5 range. I still liked Guardians of the Galaxy and the first Iron Man better, but I actually liked Doctor Strange better than Civil War. I liked it better than quite a few of the movies, honestly, and it's been doing really well in its opening weekend. Let's see if where was the it made $85 million in the United States its first weekend. That's pretty good for November. And also kind of a news story that I missed, but Michael Giacchino, who composed Doctor Strange, pretty good score by the way, is actually going to be doing Spider-Man Homecoming, which is up there on my most anticipated movies of 2017 list. But definitely go see Doctor Strange. It was very, very good. Cumberbatch is one of the best Marvel characters, best Marvel casting that they have done, up there with Robert Downey Jr. You won't be disappointed. I'm glad that this movie has kind of gone under the radar and is really surprising a lot of people. It's really kind of like Marvel meets Inception, because some of the visuals are very Inception-like, and they will just blow your mind. So go see Doctor Strange. Very, very good. And I will say in closing, before we get to the next question, you'll get a appearance by a bigger named Marvel villain. I'm not, if you know Doctor Strange, you know who it is, but you do get to see said person. Derek Daniel also asked, since it's just you, do you still feel the same way about Arrow and Flash that you did after the first episode of each? I think the last 2 weeks, Flash has gotten a lot better. My issue with the Flash is that, and I'm going to try and stay as spoiler free as I can. You took the most popular and most known storyline of the Flash and you throw it away in one episode. I understand that it has repercussions, but I think you could have milked that for at least 4 or 5 episodes before you try and somewhat turn things back to normal. It kind of disappointed me from the start. It just felt very flat. But the last 2 episodes have been really good. My big issue with The Flash is that I can't get into the Barry-Iris relationship. I know it's supposed to happen. I don't know if it's the 2 actors, but they just don't do it for me. You know, I like Grant Gustin as the Flash. I like a lot of the characters. I like Caitlin. Cisco is funny to me. I like his pop culture references. But the saving grace for this season to me has been the greatness of Tom Cavanaugh. And I know me and Derek Daniel have a little bit of dispute on that, but he's up there on my man crush list. I love Tom Cavanaugh. He's been the best part of this entire show since it started. Seeing the different versions of Harrison Wells to me was hilarious and really kind of shows off Tom Cavanaugh's acting chops. So with all the changes that they've been doing, some of them I like, some of them not so much, but the changes kind of have to happen. And if you've watched The Flash, you know, if you've watched the newest season, then I think you know why they had to make the changes and that it makes the most sense logically. But, you know, it's getting better. So I'm excited to see where it goes. And Arrow to me has just been killing it. I've loved every episode that's come out. They've gone back to the basics. They've cut out all the crap, all the magic, all the stupid storylines from the last 2 seasons. And they've gone back to what made Arrow so good. And I've liked that Oliver's had to train a new team. It's kind of shown a different side of Oliver. Like we've seen, you know, Oliver Queen, the human. We've seen Green Arrow and how he kind of struggles with those 2 identities. But seeing him really in a leadership role as both Oliver and as the Green Arrow has really kind of added a new dimension to Oliver Queen's character. And, you know, I like his new team. I like that, you know, they're keeping around some of the veterans still, just in a little bit of a different role. I didn't mind the Felicity romance, even though I think it kind of took precedent over a lot of things, and I think that's really why a lot of the fans got pissed off about it. But that's really, you know, it's taken a back burner. I love where Arrow's going. I look forward to Arrow every single week. I love Flash too, but there's just always been something about Arrow that's appealed to me a little bit more than the Flash has. And to me, the issue with Flash is that season 1 was so good that you couldn't really go anywhere but down. So that's kind of it too. But you know, I've liked both shows. I mean, Flash has started out a little slow for me, but the last 2 episodes have been really good. Nick Vikinghorn Computo, also a fellow co-host of mine on the Battle of the Brands wrestling podcast. Are you more excited about Nintendo Switch or being a millionaire? Well, if I was a millionaire, I could buy a Nintendo Switch. So I will say being a millionaire. Nick also asks, who would win in a TLC match, Adam Gumbert or Zach Dykes? Now, see, the heel versus heel matchups are always hard to pick. But I feel like Zach would go just a little bit farther. He would pull, you know, he would do just like he'd be a little more shady than Gumbert would. So I would take Zach in a close one. Who would win in a Hell in a Cell match, Nick Vikinghorn Caputo or Derek Daniel? And Derek Daniel replies, oh, Hell in a Cell? That's easy money for me. This would be entertaining as all get out. I think Derek Daniel would put up a heck of a fight, but I would take Nick to prevail in a very close and very physical Hell in a Cell match. And Adam gets in his question at the 11th hour. Since we had a good time with Jackbox during the stream, what are some of your favorite party games of all time? Could be video, board, or otherwise, but the most fun you have had with a group of people. As far as board games, Monopoly's always a classic. I haven't played Monopoly probably since college, but it takes a long time, but I love Monopoly. It's a game that I grew up loving. I remember playing Monopoly Junior and then upgrading to the classic. Mario Party is a lot of fun, especially if you get a few drunk people to play with. That's always fun. Let's see. What were some other ones? I had one on the top of my head and on the tip of my tongue, but this is more of an adult game, but Cards Against Humanity is hysterical. The phrases that people will match up and come up with are just so fun. And that's especially if you get a little bit of alcohol in people and you start a Cards Against Humanity game, you'll be going all night. And like the more family-friendly version of that, Apples to Apples, is a lot of fun too. So I like board games. I don't get to play them as much as I used to, but they're a lot of fun. And I love the Jackbox games. That was a great suggestion by Adam Gumbert. But that does it for episode 183 of the Nerd Cave podcast. I believe we were going around 40 minutes or so. Around 40, 42 minutes or so, which is a lot longer than the other solo podcast that I did, which those of you who watched or listened to that one, I definitely apologize because it was like 7 o'clock in the morning when I did it. I hadn't had coffee yet. I was kind of out of it still, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for watching and listening. You can follow us all over social media. We're on Facebook. If you want to check out our awesome Facebook group, just search for Nerd Cave. We have all kinds of conversations that go on throughout the week. We have, links to videos, discussions about movies, all kinds of cool things. If you're a nerd and you love nerdy things, then hop on by and join the conversation. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at NerdCaveVids. Be sure to follow us there. You can check out all of our various podcasts throughout the week. Every Monday, we have Nerd Cave Retro with myself and Jason Robbins, where we discuss the world of retro gaming. We'll talk about this month in video game history, and we'll kind of alternate. Like 1 week, Jason will review an NES game, and the next week, I'll review an SNES game. Every Wednesday, we have Fantasy Football for Nerds with myself and Mr. Robbie Rawls. We break down all the matchups for that upcoming week of the NFL schedule, offer our fantasy advice, waiver pickups that you might need to win your league if you have somebody who's injured or on a bye week. Myself and Robbie have loved fantasy football. We've been playing for almost 10 years, so getting to do that podcast is a lot of fun. Thursdays, we have two shows. We have my solo show, The Derek Diamond Experience. It's kind of a combination of interviews and also roundtable discussions. Interviews, I've interviewed Claudia Wells, who was Jennifer Parker in the original Back to the Future. Most recently, Laura Hall, the piano player from Whose Line Is It Anyway, my all-time favorite show. All kinds of cool things. And we also do roundtable discussions. I'll bring a few friends on and we'll discuss things like 90s Nickelodeon, Cheers, Disney. It's a fun show. It's a really fun show to do. And we also have our newest addition to the podcast family, Battle of the Brands, our wrestling podcast, where myself and my co-hosts Adam Gumbert and Nick Caputo will review Raw and SmackDown and discuss which show was better this week. We'll also preview a pay-per-view if there is one, and we do all kinds of cool segments, mostly ones that Nick come up with. He's really good at that, so definitely check that out. On Fridays, we have this show, the Nerd Cave Podcast, and on Saturdays, we have our friends over at the Pop Culture Palette. Their show is similar to this one, where we discuss the latest news in nerd and pop culture. But if you want access to all of that stuff early, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/nerdcave. If you want to donate, that would be much appreciated. All the expenses go to us getting new equipment, getting to better do the things that we love to do. And we have all kinds of different tiers. If you just donate $1, you get an exclusive bonus episode. We do a new one every month. It's always available on the first of every month. If you do $5 or more, you get early access to not just this podcast, but all the other podcasts on our network. And you can get early access to the YouTube versions and so on and so forth. There's all kinds of different tiers. You can just go to patreon.com/nerdcave and check out all of the tiers there. And you can check out our 2 YouTube channels. We have youtube.com/nerdcave, where you can find this podcast in its video form. We also break it up into segments throughout the week, and the full version is available on Fridays. And we have Nerd Cave Gaming, where we have all Let's Plays and videos we do that are related to video game news. You can check out there. That is a lot of stuff for one person to plug. I'm used to having Zach do one, and then Robbie do one, and then I'll do one. So I'm already out of breath. My voice is kind of starting to go a little bit. If I kind of stammered a little bit or had to stop and pause, a few times, I do apologize for that, as I said at the top of the show. Fighting a sinus infection for the last couple of weeks, so hopefully I can get that taken care of soon. Thank you guys. Thank you to everyone who helped out with Extra Life. Thank you to everyone who donated for Extra Life. And you can still donate. Just go to nerdcavenetwork.com/extralife, and you can find out more information there. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening to this podcast. All of our other content, be it other podcasts or our YouTube videos, we appreciate everything that you guys do, and we do it all for you, because if there was no audience, there would be no Nerd Cave. So on behalf of Zach and Robbie, this is Derek saying, have a week.